I'm so happy to have all of you here for our first Zoom reunion presentation. Certainly, I think that Biddy has ever done to the reunion classes and all of us gathered here. So first, happy reunion to all of you celebrating reunions in the 1s and 6s. We really wish we were on campus and cannot wait for next year when hopefully we have a reunion that celebrates not just the people celebrating in 2022, but those of you who missed coming to campus. So I'm Betsy Cannon-Smith, class of '84, not a reunion class, but I like to think of every year as my reunion year. And I'm really thrilled to be here tonight. We have a record number of trustees in the reunion classes, which is really nice for all of you who have classmates on the board. We also have with us the members of the college's senior staff. Before you panic though, we're not all planning to speak. Tonight, we really want you to have the opportunity to really be part of a conversation with our president, Biddy Martin, and our trustees. Let me just point the trustees out to you, and if you'd each wave, that would be terrific so people can see who you are. Let's start with Arthur Koenig from the class of 1966. Hello, Arthur.
Hello.
We then have Paul Smith in the class of 1976.
Hello.
Two trustees from the class of 1981, Christine Noyer Seaver and Dave MacLennan. Dave MacLennan.
Hey, hi.
Terrific. And Simon Krinsky celebrating his 25th reunion, class of 96.
Hi, everyone.
And Elizabeth Shelburne from the class of 01.
Hi, everyone.
Terrific, great. And again, as I said, the rest of the names you'll see, the folks on the screen are the members of the college's senior staff, and we're really all happy to be here to answer any questions that might come up. So I think we'll start though with Biddy. And none of you, I expect, have had the chance to be back to Amherst, except maybe the handful who drove through like a drive-through at Dunkin' Donuts, dropping children off who may have been coming to Amherst for their orientation, which was a sort of drive-through, drop off and go away, never to see the campus until pickup time. But Biddy, could you talk to us a little bit, go back to the spring of '90 when it was a nice early March and we were all on campus and things were going along, and then suddenly we had to leave. Could you talk about what it was like to be leading the college at that time, the decisions, the kinds of things that we were tackling just to get through that first semester?
Thank you, Betsy. Hi, everybody. Happy reunion. I wish you were here in person. I'm going to get to the question, but I do want to tell you that it's a beautiful day in Amherst, and the lilacs and the dogwood and many other plants and flowers are decorating the campus. It's gorgeous, and I can't wait for you all to be able to come back. So yes, now the question was way back to spring of '19. What was it like? There's no way to describe what it was like. All I can say is that I am really lucky to have a great senior team and a great board. It was problem solving and decision making on the fly and without enough information. And that was true for all of you as well, for everyone in this, what we hope will be once in a lifetime pandemic. What I really also appreciate is the expertise of so many of our alumni. And once we decided that we couldn't have students go away on spring break and come back, given how rapidly the virus was spreading, we sent students home, except for those who didn't have a way to study at home or a place to go. And then we called on Harold Varmus, David Kessler, Zeke Emanuel, and other alums who really gave of their time generously to help me think through what would be the next best steps, and especially to plan for fall. So what was it like to be president? I mean, fascinating, stressful, and, you know, also silver linings in the forms of collaboration and learning that went along with all of the difficulty.
Biddy, some of those, you named some of our alums, in fact, some in the reunion classes, and I know Harold is doing a panel tomorrow, Harold Varmus. But could you also talk about your reach across other colleges and universities, your interaction with presidents of those schools, and really how extensive it seemed this year, how that helped to inform decisions?
Yeah, that is a great question, and it has been the most collaborative and the least competitive period I've ever experienced in higher education. We had the really great good fortune of being part of the Association of Independent Colleges and Universities in the Commonwealth of Massachusetts, and the presidents met every Friday for much of last summer and into the fall. Well into the spring, actually. And the collaboration was remarkable. Most of the institutions that were represented in that group, called ACOM, got their testing through the Broad in Cambridge, and as did we. And we were very collaborative in thinking about how to set that up, in working with the state, with the governor and the governor's team, about the kinds of regulations and safety measures we'd need to take. It's really been quite remarkable, the amount of collaboration and conversation. It's unlike anything I've experienced over what is now, I realize, a long career in higher education.
Is there anything comparable, Biddy, that you can think of, any time in all of your years in higher education, the closest situation to this, where you just, on a national level, there was not clarity around what to do and how to do it?
Oh, I'm going to punt on that one, Betsy, and say nothing that comes to mind immediately. I don't think there's anything quite like it. We've certainly dealt with our share of crises on our own campus, and certainly I did as provost of Cornell and chancellor of UW-Madison, but nothing on this scale. It's not just the country, it is the entire globe. And it has really been a year and a quarter or a third or more for all of us. The last time I saw our trustees in person was in January of 19, when we met out in California. And I came back from California, and so did several members of the senior staff, very ill. And I now wonder whether it was COVID. At the time, people thought there couldn't have been that much spread in California, but it turned out that there actually was quite a bit. So that, I think, all the way back to that moment and forward to the next time I get to be with the board and with my senior team, as a matter of fact, in person. Betsy, you and I got to see each other in person at our City Street Spring Festival for students, which was beautiful, out of doors, socially distanced, everyone masked, lots of good food, great music, and a lot of students enjoying themselves outside. And I don't think I even realized that I was seeing Betsy in person as opposed to on Zoom, which is the weirdest thing. Yeah. But in any case, it was great to see her, as it is also on Zoom.
Great. Biddy, you just started to talk a little bit about working with the board in this time. Were there real differences in how you interacted with the board, or the kinds of things you called on the board for? And then I'm going to turn that question over and ask that of a board member too.
Well, yes and no. For one thing, we met by Zoom, and it's a lot more fun when the board comes to campus or we can be in person with each other. I've really missed our Friday night dinners at my house, and I can't wait to have you all over, those of you who are currently here and those who are not present tonight. So yes, in that sense, and also in the sense that we called on the board members, sometimes smaller groups, sometimes the full board, to meet more frequently. There were a lot of decisions that needed to be made. They have incredible expertise. I'm thinking right now of those of you on this Zoom call, the trustees who have your own businesses, some of you rather enormous global businesses. You were making these decisions at the same time for many, many, many more people. And having that expertise and the frequency of contact really helped tremendously. Other than that, I would say we managed through Zoom to have relatively normal interactions.
That's a great time to turn to one of those board members who at the same time was managing one of those businesses that you're talking about, Biddy. Dave MacLennan, could you talk a little bit about what it was like being on the Amherst board, facing these issues? What concerned you the most?
I mean, Biddy and her team did a great job. And as she mentioned, we had a small working group of, I don't know, 6 or 7 trustees that either had, real-time experience, if you will. So I manage a company that's got 155,000 employees. So I was able to bring some experiences in what we were seeing, the things that we were doing. I wanted this to be taken in the right context, and Biddy said it, but we were, in some ways, like the rest of the world, we were making it up as we go. And I felt like the expertise that was in the board, in the conversations, we had a lot of different viewpoints. Some people were, coming from different perspectives, but ultimately, the decisions that Biddy and her team made were always with a filter of, how do we keep our students safe? How do we get them safely back to campus? And we did kind of start with the premise that we want them back on campus and have the wonderful experience that we all know Amherst offers. And there were times when we'd make it go in a direction and then, think differently about it with more information. I also would want everyone to know that Biddy was an early proponent of deep and frequent testing. And we were fortunate to have the Broad Foundation support us in terms of how many tests we could offer. And it's in the Biddy, I don't know what's the number, but it's the thousands upon thousands of tests that we administered during the COVID period.
Kevin Weinman could tell us exactly.
Kevin, yeah.
I don't have the exact number, but it's pushing 150,000 tests.
There you go.
Summer,
So
75 positives, so very low positivity rate.
Exactly. And so the filter of, let's keep our students safe. Let's have contingency plans. We had the Inn on Boltwood planned if we needed to move people there. We had other facilities. We were looking at the surrounding health facilities. So to conclude, what was like being on the board? It was like everybody else. It was uncertain, a little bit scary, invigorating. The adrenaline was going, but always we had the filter of, let's keep people safe and healthy. And she and her team made great decisions, and the results show it. I think we did a wonderful job of providing the experience that we did.
Thanks, Dave. Arthur, you're on your second term on the board, so you've had a lot of time to be part of this work at Amherst. And you also are one of the people who comes the furthest for some of our meetings, often from London. Could you tell us, how are the Zoom board meetings? Drawbacks, benefits?
Okay, can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay, I've written out what my answer is. The Board of Trustees offers consultation, not management of the college. It offers insights and discussions with faculty, staff, and students. Until 2020, the meetings were organized with the trustees receiving a board book prepared by the staff discussing important issues for the quarterly meeting. At the meeting, discussions were in person through committees or committees of the whole. COVID brought a change. We could no longer meet in person. The board book was delivered, but the discussions were via technology, Zoom. It was available and the staff made it work. This permitted the business of the college to go forward and be completed. The book was delivered, discussions took place, and important decisions were made on time, and the relationship amongst trustees, staff, faculty, and students stayed strong. What was the price of this technology? The beloved in-person interaction could not take place and was desperately missed. There was exhaustion, isolation that was widespread, and maybe some comprehension was lost. The good news, with the probable control of COVID, we may go back to a fully residential college in the fall. What will happen to Zoom and digital technology? My hope and guess that there will be a hybrid system that emphasizes in-person learning, and digital technology will be used for the more efficient delivery of information. That's my thought.
Thank you, Arthur. And I think it's not lost on any of us, though, that the in-person interaction, particularly with the students, something that you've made possible with our Koenig Scholars on campus. Those are international students that you and the rest of the board spend a lot of time with when you're on campus and learning about their experiences. So that will be very good to get back to.
Oh, that's wonderful.
Yeah.
That's the best part.
Elizabeth, you have yet to meet any of the people you're on the Zoom screen with in person. So Elizabeth was elected to the board just in the recently completed alumni trustee election last year. What's it like to join a board like this, not having any context of this group meeting in person?
Well, yeah, I haven't met anyone actually in face-to-face, and I still think that I suspect most of them think that my fellow new board member and Bill O'Malley and I are actually cardboard cutouts that appear on Zoom periodically, which would be fair. It was a really strange time to join the board, to go through the trustee election process back when we sort of all thought we'd be in lockdown for a few weeks, and then join the board. I very quickly learned, I think before my first board meeting was probably halfway over, what an incredible board this is. And that fact was apparent. You know, you don't need to be in person to see that. I think I'm not alone in wishing I could go back to Amherst and do it again. And the board this last 9 months has been the closest I'll probably get to that. I have been in awe of the conversations, the really thoughtful conversations, the intense curiosity, and the perceptive questions that people come to the conversations we're having, and the big questions that the board is wrestling with. And I've quickly realized how much higher education is a microcosm of the world at large. And like with all the best Amherst classes, I've come away really challenging my assumptions and thinking about the questions that we're talking about from new perspectives. And that's been so valuable. And that's all just from Zoom. So I'm very excited to be in person with everyone. And be able to sit and go to this Friday night dinner, which I didn't even know existed.
Thank you, Elizabeth. Paul, as chair of Student Life Committee, that was particularly a challenge to keep up with what's going on with the students and what the conditions were that were created for the students during the pandemic. Can you talk a little bit about how you and the committee kept up with that?
Sure, Betsy. I'd sort of divide the whole process into two phases. There was the before September 2020 phase, when we were basically operating as a committee of the whole. We had lots of extra board meetings all summer trying to decide what kinds of rules we were going to have. Were we really going to finally let people back on campus? And this was a very fraught time. But then once we successfully got a very significant chunk of the students back on campus, we kind of returned to regular order and had board meetings in October and January and April. And it is obviously a big part of what the trustees do through the Student Life Committee to keep an eye on how the students are doing and try to recommend improvements. One of the most, I think, remarkable experiences of this period was the committee meeting we had in October, where we invited the whole board to come and attend. And it was a meeting with this remarkable group of students, the Presidential Student Advisory Board, the people that have been meeting with Biddy since the beginning of the pandemic. By that time, many of them were virtual, many of them were on campus, different classes, and they had provided a tremendous amount of insight to the administration, to Biddy, about students and how they were feeling and what would work and what wouldn't work. And they gave us a remarkable report about how this was all going. And you know, one of the things that's always been true since September is we feel like we're on a good course. And you know, there were lots of things people were missing about their college experience, but lots of other things people were really glad of, in part because the faculty had made such a huge effort over the summer to become experts in teaching in this new world of hybrid learning. And it was a very positive experience. And then in January, we heard from Karu Kazuma, the Chief Student Affairs Officer, about the efforts that were being made to deal with what was probably the most difficult time morale-wise of the year, which was the long, dark winter when you couldn't just sit in those Adirondack chairs and in those tents outside all the time. You had to stay indoors. And also from all the people providing mental health services and crisis management and all the extra things that were done to try to get everybody through this year successfully. And so I've been very proud of the way the college handled this, and really glad to have been able to be a part of it.
Thank you, Paul. Simon, you chair the investment committee and therefore know a lot about the endowment. Can you talk a little bit, just for all of us, about how you thought about that balance of the huge increases in costs that the college was undertaking, about the need to think about the long term and do planning?
Sure. Yes, I did. Hi, Betsy. I did not write this down. So I will just start by saying that I love Arthur. And it cannot be understated how big of an impact Arthur and his scholars have made on the school. I just wish we had roped him into the class of 96, which is, in fact, the best class ever. He can be honorary class of 96 tonight. I think a little bit of context is probably helpful for the endowment conversation. So in September of 19, we hired a new chief investment officer, a woman named Letitia Johnson, who is fabulous. And she started, in what I think is like the best investment job in the world at the most unusual time. And kind of going into that period, so in the fiscal year of 19, the draw from the endowment was more than 50% of the operating budget. And it had been trending upwards forever, really. And so the first thing Letitia did was actually a crisis plan, which she presented to the board in the middle of October of 2019. And the exercise really boiled down to just a couple things. One, making sure we have enough cash, liquidity, to meet the needs of the school. And also that the portfolio itself was durable enough to survive in a crisis, or maybe even thrive in a crisis. And so we were very fortunate. We came into, call it March of 2020, with more cash than we had historically, basically enough that if the crisis had lasted a couple of years, we would have been able to ride through it without impacting the rest of the portfolio. And that the rest of the portfolio was sort of authentically and intentionally diversified across different value drivers. As it turned out, a bunch of investments that were made long before I was on the investment committee and long before Letitia was the CIO in early technology companies really thrived during last year. So many of those companies went public, and we ended up, now looking a little bit with hindsight, having plenty of liquidity to make it through this really scary time, even as the reliance ticked from 54 to well over 60% of the operating budget. And I would just maybe wrap with one quick shout out to Kevin and his team too, because right around the time of that crisis planning, before COVID hit, the college raised some money through the debt markets, which we also went into the period feeling a great degree of comfort that it could be used if we needed to, if things kind of extended out worse. So hope that's helpful.
Thanks, Simon. And as we're talking about the endowment, I'm going to turn for a moment to Chris Noyer Seaver, who's one of the people who really helps to make sure that there's a steady stream of support going to the endowment in her role as co-chair of the Promise campaign. So Chris, could you just give us a quick update on the Promise campaign and where we're going to put our efforts these next 2 years?
It's very generous of you, Betsy, to let me talk about this, because of course Betsy leads the advancement operation, is probably single-handedly the most important person pulling all of this together. But I will say that the campaign itself is probably the best example of a team effort on this board as anything that we've done. Amherst trustees, the first ones to step forward and put money on the table, put money into endowment, but also help identify what are the priorities, what are the most important things we need now, what does Amherst need for the next 25 years, 50 years and beyond in order to sustain all the terrific things that we've got in place, and to continue to attract the students that we want and need, the best ones around the world, and same for the faculty. So we established the Promise campaign, launched it a couple of years ago. We're about 85% toward our goal, which is just phenomenal. So we had a 625 million goal, and we're as I say, about 85% of the way on there, 527.6 million. So that number itself is obviously incredible. What's more incredible is what it says about how our alumni care about this place and love it, about how hard our faculty and students work to try to live up to what I think we all felt like we had and want to give them. everybody gives for a different reason. That's one of the great things about being involved in the campaign, having conversations with alums at all different levels. Everybody shares a story. Some people just do it out of gratitude because they received money as students. Some are just so thankful for what they got at Amherst. Some see in Amherst that, you know, could be better and could do better, and they want to help contribute toward making that happen. So there are all different, you know, reasons and ways and motivations, but I think they all stem from a belief in an institution that does absolutely incredible things. We've got three pieces, right? It's the faculty, and it's the students, and it's the, I guess, the place in which the magic happens. And, you know, everything that we focus on and look to try to do really falls into one of those three buckets. And as I said, everybody seems to have something that resonates with, again, what they see and feel and what they want to have happen. So we've got 2 more years to go. I'm going to speak out of school right now in my capacity to say, I hope we beat our goal and keep going and do better. Amherst is never happy with just meeting status quo. So let's continue to, you know, to keep talking. If I haven't talked to any of you out there listening, let's have a conversation. I'm up for it anytime. And I think everyone around this room, around this table, this Zoom room is as well. So let the team continue and let us keep going.
Thanks, Chris. Biddy, this year the board saw the formation of a new committee, and that was one of the pledges in the anti-racism plan that was shared with our entire community, was to form a standing DEI committee of the board. And I wonder if you could tell us a little bit about the committee and its work. Elizabeth, you're on that committee as well. So perhaps Biddy, you could say a few words of that, and then Elizabeth as well.
Well, this gives me a great opportunity to make sure that Norm Jones, who has been our Chief Diversity, Equity, and Inclusion Officer, the first ever in Amherst's history for the past 5 years, and who is leaving to lead his family foundation, unfortunately for us, but joyously for him. This gives me a chance to let Norm talk a little bit about how we imagined the DEI committee of the board and its importance. It follows a model, a kind of distributed responsibility model that Norm has been instrumental in building at the college on the campus itself. Norm, can I call on you to give you a chance to talk a little bit about the committee?
Certainly. Thanks, Biddy. We're all very excited about the work of the Diversity, Equity, and Inclusion Committee of the board, in part because we know that this work really requires investment at the level of governance. And in doing a lot of our research, we found that there aren't that many institutions that actually have trustee level committees dedicated to the work of diversity, equity, and inclusion. So rather than regularly reporting on what's going on in administrative offices, we're trying to pivot the conversation to include what is necessary for leaders who lead colleges and universities to really be thinking about as they interface with presidents and other boards of trustees, as they anticipate the kinds of issues that will face higher education in the future, and as we situate these conversations across other committees within the Board of Trustees. So it's not just this one committee, but facilities and finance and all of those who are thinking about the future of DEI. So I'll let others speak about the future of the committee, but we're very excited about it.
Yeah, Elizabeth.
All right, thanks everyone. I'm so glad that Norm was on to speak to the committee, because he is really the reason for its success so far. And I keep hoping that if I don't say it out loud that you're leaving, that it won't happen. But I think that's probably magical thinking that several others are engaging in as well. So we're gonna miss you tremendously. Yeah, I've been so excited to be a part of this new committee. And I remember when we were first told that it was unusual to have a trustee level DEI committee. And I was surprised by that. And because it seems like such crucial work. And so I'm delighted to have been a part of it for the last 9 months. I really do see what the goal is with, and just trying to distribute that work so that it doesn't live in one place, but it really is the foundation for all of the conversations and work and questions that we're engaging with. And, I read a quote of yours, Norm, that you talked about equity has to be advanced through policy and process and structures. And I think this committee is a way to help push that conversation and the college's work forward in that way. And it's, mindful always that this work is never done in that sense. It's the work of many, many lifetimes, but really honored to be part of a committee and a board and a college that's really committed to naming the challenges and doing the work.
Thank you. Biddy, before we jump ahead to thinking about the bicentennial year that we're in and some of the things you're looking forward to, because it seems like we all can now look forward to our campus returning not just to full, but over full for the fall and our faculty being back. But I want to just get a couple of questions that have been put in the chat. So this one is from our friend Michael Cole. Thank you, Michael Cole, who is actually hosting the musical the musical performance tomorrow night. So people should sign into that. You can find it on your reunion information. President Martin, you come across as someone who is basically unflappable. You're calm, measured, reasoned, and reasonable. Pulling back the curtain a little, what is one thing that gets on your nerves in the real world? And one thing that gets on your nerves at Amherst? Also, what is your favorite burrito at Bueno y Sano?
What is my favorite?
Burrito at Bueno y Sano in town.
Chicken.
Okay, chicken. That's easy. Now you've got to go the other two. We're really all dying to know the answer to this.
If you were to ask any member of the senior staff who's here tonight, they could tell you what irritates me, and it would be a longer list than one thing. Let's see, what irritates me about the world? Oh my goodness. There are too many things to count, but I would say right now, it's not an irritation. What worries me about the world really is the degree of violence, polarization, and racism. What irritates me at Amherst? Sometimes the degree to which we can get lost in the details and lose the forest for the trees. And I'll go back to chicken.
Okay, great. I'm going to take a couple more questions and then we'll go back into the bicentennial. I think this one's for you, Matt. It's just a question about the admission stats for the class of 2025. Tell us a little bit about the class.
Yeah, thanks, Betsy.
Thank you, Jace Bailey. Go ahead.
I'm happy to do so. And great to be here with all of you tonight. For those of you that I haven't met, my name is Matt McGann. I'm the Dean of Admission and Financial Aid here at the college. This was a record-shattering year in admission. We had nearly 14,000 applications for first-year admission. That's up from about 10,000 last year. And it was really incredible to see so many students responding to what Amherst offers at this time, the kind of education, the kind of community, the kind of care with that kind of demand for our education. Unfortunately, as you know, we're, in many ways, fortunately, we're a small college. We believe in close community, close colloquy. So there aren't that many spaces available. And to have a class this year that will fill our 7 residences on the first year quad, we were only able to offer admission to about 8.5% of the students who applied. It was an extraordinarily competitive year. But this year's first year class coming in is really remarkable, coming from all across the country and around the world, from tribal nations across the country, from countries on most continents, bringing with them just such curiosity and excellence. It is going to be the most diverse class in the history of the college. More than half of the students identify as domestic students of color. We'll have 12% of the population will be coming to us from overseas. It's going to be an amazing class. I can't wait for them to get here at the end of August and to get to meet them in person. It's a remarkable class.
Thank you, Matt. All right, a couple more questions. Thanks, Bob Howard, for this question. And Bob, you're among those who's worked hardest to organize these reunions, class of 76. Biddy, those of us who've been involved in organizing virtual reunion have had a window on just how hard the staff has been working during the pandemic, the extraordinary learning curve in terms of organizing and hosting online events, the stresses from working from home, etc. I can only imagine the faculty has been working just as hard as they've adapted to the world of online learning. Do you worry, and how much do you worry about faculty and staff burnout? And if so, what can we do to help? And a similar question, was a little bit more specific on how did the scientists work in the labs? What did they do for their students? So faculty related questions, burnout, what do you think, Biddy? And Catherine may comment on this.
Sorry, I was muted because my dog has started growling in the background. Hopefully you won't notice it now that I've called it to your attention. I do worry about the staff, the senior staff you're seeing on screen right now, the faculty and the students, and all of you for that matter. I mean, it has been an exhausting time and a really challenging time, and not only because of the pandemic, but because of a host of other kinds of pandemics, as many people would say. And people have worked, this group of senior staff members is indicative of what faculty have done and what staff at the rest of the college have done, and that is work right through from this March of 19 until now, many without a break. And so I do worry. I worry about the exhaustion, people's vulnerability to getting sick as a result. And we're encouraging people to be more intentional about their vacations this summer, to use vacation time and to regroup. Faculty hopefully will have this summer. They gave up their entire summer last year to work together and to work with the Center for Teaching and Learning to change the way they teach so that online courses could be effective. And I greatly admire both the efforts they've made and also the results based on student and faculty feedback. So yes, we're worried. We not only are worried, we're really appreciative of the work staff at the college have been doing. And the work is so spectacular, from facilities and healthcare and setting up testing sites and ensuring that they operate well. Our custodial staff has been amazing. Our dining staff has been spectacular. Every group of staff at the college has pulled its weight and more. And we did offer bonuses to everyone mid-year, and we are focused on making sure that we can help any staff, students, and faculty who may need it. Catherine, do you want to say anything about your assessment of how faculty are doing at the close of this year?
Well, thank you, Biddy. I'm Catherine Epstein. I'm Provost and Dean of the Faculty. Our faculty have been, in fact, amazing this academic year and also last summer, and also when the pandemic shut down in-person education last spring. I think part of the question was about scientists specifically and lab scientists in particular. And I just want to say a few words about that. Our scientists have been incredibly ingenious about how to do labs sort of out of the box, if you like, for students studying remotely. So this year we've had a mix of in-person classes and remote learning opportunities. And so our labs have been open, although they've been opened at a physically distanced manner. So, so the science labs, some of them have worked really well, and sort of, again, because our faculty have been so clever in sort of what they've done, but some labs have not been possible to do. So you can't send chemicals through the US mails easily. And so as a result, there are certain chemistry labs that certainly haven't been done. And so students, I think, and faculty are looking forward to doing that the next time round. Our Science Center has been open since last fall, and so there is now quite a bit of scientific research that is going on, and there are a good number of students in labs, although the labs can't be used at capacity. So the ones we're most concerned about are our pre-tenure faculty or scientists who don't yet have tenure, and they are on a tenure clock. We have extended their tenure clocks, but they are justifiably very concerned about all the time they've lost in doing their experiments, because many of those experiments take a long time to tee up. So we're watching the situation very carefully. We really want to hear more from the scientists themselves, what they need as the pandemic sort of, as we hope, eases. We really want to know what's going to help them get on track as soon as possible. And they're an amazing group, so we're very hopeful that they're going to be successful in the coming years.
Biddy, this will lead us into our bicentennial conversation. We had a question from about people having the opportunity to come back to campus in the fall to celebrate the bicentennial and what that would look like. I can say a word about that, which is we're certainly planning homecoming and family weekend, and any moment that anyone is on campus, we want to celebrate the bicentennial. But also, I think we can say that we don't know exactly what that's going to look like yet. We're watching carefully all the guidelines and all the guidance for gathering indoors. But in this moment, we're welcoming people back to campus for that, and hopefully for some bicentennial celebration. But Biddy, could you talk a little bit about what the bicentennials meant for the college, and looking beyond that to next year? What are some of the things you're most excited about, some of the priorities that you're focusing your attentions on?
Oh, that's a lot of questions. Let's see, the bicentennial. The bicentennial has been made surprisingly fun and present by those in charge of bicentennial celebration, two of whom, the chairs of the bicentennial committee, Beth Schumacher and Sandy Junius, part of the senior team, have done a remarkable job with the help of the committees that are working with them. Many of you will have seen the logos. You hopefully have gone online to see the website, which offers you a vast array of different opportunities to think about the history of Amherst and change over time. I think we need a bicentennial event on the campus, and I cannot wait for that opportunity. You know, I had wanted to reenact the first president, Zephaniah Swift Moore, coming over the mountain from Williams on horseback with 15 students. And we actually were making plans for some imitator of me to ride a horse onto the quad with 15 students and a box or a bag of books in tow. We weren't able to do that, or we haven't been able to do that yet. All of that is just to say we have found other ways to celebrate on campus. The students love all the swag, the bicentennial swag that's been made available to them. And actually, so do those of us who are not students, love the swag. The books that were commissioned for the bicentennial, I hope, have made their way to some of you at least, and I hope you're enjoying them. The bicentennial is a remarkable event in the history of a college. And as most of you, I'm sure, I just get very focused on how much has changed and how little the fundamentals have changed. So when I think about a group of townspeople and farmers putting their money together to make sure that indigent young men, in that case of piety, could get a college education, and what an education it was for the ministry. Quite a grounding in the classics and the ancient languages, among other things. When I think about the emphasis on the importance of education and the importance of access to it, and I think about what we're trying to do now in a very different world where that is more challenging, I just see the continuity over 200 years as well as remarkable change. Cullen Murphy used to say, or likes to say, you know, we started as a small local or regional college with men, primarily white, and have grown to be an international liberal arts college that attracts students from all over the world. Women, men, trans, non-binary gendered young people and people from every race and ethnicity and most countries have been students and are graduates of this college. And the faculty has simply been amazing. We have scholar teachers who are more devoted than any I've experienced in my career at higher education, and that continues to be consistently true. It's a magical place. And so what am I looking forward to? Looking forward to whatever work is required to keep it magical, even in the face of challenges. I'm very, very excited about a new student center that is now in schematic design. I would say a challenge for Amherst is a challenge that has existed since fraternities were abolished, is students' residential experience and social lives. And we don't really have a town center at Amherst, oddly enough. And this student center, what we've been calling a student center, is going to really be something more like a campus center where people can bump into each other as well as gather purposefully across all of their many interests and their differences in ways that just aren't possible in the same way right now. I'm very, very excited about that. I'm also excited to see how the faculty will use what they've learned, all the innovations they've made in the ways they teach, how they will use all of what's been learned during COVID to create, if it's possible, even better, more rigorous, more wide-ranging courses and curricula. So there's almost nothing I'm not excited about when it comes to Amherst, except getting too detailed and losing the forest for the trees.
Biddy, how about the move of the dining commons into the student center?
That's right. Well, you know, Val is about to outlive its usefulness. And so the Student Center will include a new dining center, and that dining center will become the new Val. The Student Center and Dining Commons are going to be built on the site of Merrill and McGuire. And we have, as probably most of you know, because you'd be interested in this and following it, Herzog and de Muren architects out of Basel, Switzerland, who have done the conceptual design and are now working on schematic design for what will be a spectacular addition to our campus.
This would be a good time to pivot to Dave MacLennan, who chairs the Building and Grounds Committee of the board, or co-chairs that committee. And Dave, maybe a few words about the Climate Action Plan, its connection to the Student Center, the importance of the Student Center in this whole really change of the campus, the Greenway, that whole new section of the campus.
Yeah, I mean, those are the two most significant projects that are going on right now. I mean, there's always a lot going on, as Jim Brasser, who's on the call, would tell you, in the life of the college. But the Climate Action Plan, basically modernizing our energy systems and getting us to carbon neutral, and as well as the Student Center, which Biddy talked about. It's interesting to see the evolution of the campus. I don't know how many people on the call have been there recently, but Betsy mentioned the Greenway and the new dorms that are down that way. And when my son was there, you know, from 2010 to 2014, there was a couple of trailers. The transformation of that part of campus, so I guess that would be the southeastern part of campus, is really remarkable. And not only in terms of the architecture, but in the way the two campuses kind of connect. And I think once the Student Center is really an exciting project, as Biddy mentioned, Alan, because it's the dining facility and it's going to use some of the former Merrill Science Center. But we've just seen the design, and it would be a place where, you know, we have as a college consistently scored low in terms of our ratings on social life. And I think this is something that would also transform the social life of the students and give a place for common gathering. But between the Climate Action Plan and, you know, as I said, modernizing our energy systems and converting to be carbon neutral, in addition to the Student Center, we've got some really exciting projects that are going to take us well into the 2030s and decades beyond in terms of modernizing the campus.
Thank you, Dave. Jim, anything you wanted to add on the climate action plan?
No, just that we're very excited about the intersection between these two projects. Herzog and Demeron will design a world-class building, both in its aesthetics and function and its sustainability. And that building will interface with the new infrastructure and systems that Dave has mentioned. The other thing we're really excited about with the Student Center is that by reclaiming a portion of the Merrill structure, we really reduce the embodied carbon in the project. So we're thinking about it both operationally, and we're thinking about it in terms of embodied carbon.
And all of you who had occasion to play on the playing fields beyond Merrill will be happy to know that in the not too distant future, there'll be 420 geothermal wells dug under those fields, and they'll return to being playing fields. So it's a very exciting time. A few more questions here that I'll just throw out. Some vaccination questions, no surprise. Every time we gather, people are interested in vaccinations. Is the college requiring vaccinations? If not, why? Students, staff, what does that look like? And actually really interesting question about what role UMass and the town of Amherst have played in our COVID decision-making. So 3 different questions, but all around those issues. Do you want to tackle that one, Biddy?
I can. If I get anything wrong, Kevin will correct me. We are requiring that students be vaccinated to return in the fall, and we are considering requiring faculty and staff vaccinations as well. And more on that soon. Kevin, let me just pause there and make sure that we haven't, your group has not yet come to a decision that is ready to come forward, I don't believe.
That's right. But one thing we're really excited to report is that 96% of our students are either fully vaccinated or have begun their vaccination regimen, and 86% of our faculty and staff have done so as well. So even absent a mandate, the student mandate doesn't take place until the fall. Our community is really eager to get vaccinated, and they understand that that's the best way to get back to normal. We had a very popular, oversubscribed vaccination clinic on campus a couple of weeks ago. But by that time, many people had already received their vaccine. So we're well on our way with or without a mandate, and we'll continue to evaluate that question as we go forward.
Kevin, how about a little bit about the advantages of UMass and its testing that was available all year long?
Yeah, I mean, it's a mixed question, right? I mean, UMass is a very large, mostly off-campus university, created some challenges for us as we tried to create and preserve our own bubble. So whereas Williams and other of our peers were able to make decisions in isolation, we had to keep in mind that we had a very large university here and the potential for taxing a local health system. So that led to some of the more cautious decision making that we did last summer. But UMass has been a terrific resource in making its own facilities available for vaccinating the local area. Vaccine uptake in the Amherst region is incredibly high as well, in addition to the colleges. So it's been a year with pluses and minuses with respect to having a large flagship university down the road.
And UMass, we've got the other schools too. And how about a word or two about how and if we coordinated with Smith, Mount Holyoke, Hampshire in making our own decisions?
We have closely coordinated things to the degree we can. A good example would be the decision to require vaccinations for the fall. That would have affected every other institution in the 5 colleges had any one of the colleges or university gone it alone. But we kept each other up to date, we kept each other informed, and we consulted with each other to ensure that we weren't going to make a decision that would prevent students from moving between and among campuses. All 5 have required vaccinations for students for the fall.
Biddy, would you say a word about the plan for the fall, speaking of the fall, and the return of students to campus?
The plan for the fall, I'm happy to say, is that we will have even more students than usual because of the number of students who took a gap year or a leave this past year, and also the probability that not as many will be studying abroad as usual. We hope to have all of our students on campus in residence, and Provost Epstein has made it amply clear that teaching will be done in person. And so barring developments that we can't control, we expect to have a semester that looks like the new normal or the new. Don't know if it'll be normal, but it'll be the new and it will be in person. I do expect, and we're working hard because we love the forms of innovation that have occurred on the campus during COVID, not only in teaching and learning, but also in other kinds of work. So we are really interested in seeing how we can use those lessons and what value there is in using a technology for things that will help us do our work, limit expenses, and also reduce our carbon footprint. There are all kinds of meetings and forms of travel. There is also the question of the workforce and whether people will have found that working remotely is preferable for them and works for the college. We haven't made any decisions about that yet, but we are, that is by we, I want to emphasize in particular Lisa Rutherford, to whom Human Resources reports, and other colleagues on this call are working hard to think about what the workforce might look like going forward. And Lisa, if you want to say anything about that, please feel free.
Sure. Hello, my name is Lisa Rutherford. I'm the general counsel for the campus. Nice to join you all tonight. Yeah, as Biddy mentioned, this is really exciting actually for us and really something new and different to think about, the idea of remote workforce. Pre-pandemic, we really had very few, if anyone, working remotely, and then it was only in really particular situations. What we've discovered is we can be pretty good at it. We were forced to do it, and it turns out we're not too bad at doing it. So what we'd like to do going forward is find opportunities and ways to incorporate that into our day-to-day work, and for many reasons, not the least of which is, I think, just staff satisfaction and another way to promote diversity, equity, and inclusion. And there's all sorts of ways I think remote work can help us expand some of our goals. So we're excited. We're going to bring proposals soon to senior staff, and I'm hoping by fall we'll have something really concrete in place.
Great, thank you. I think I'll open it now to our trustees, and I have a question specifically for Elizabeth and Arthur, but would ask any of the trustees to chime in, which is in terms of bookending the group of trustees who are here, what is the breadth of classes and the kinds of experiences of the board members, right? All of you are not necessarily aligned. All of the B&G people aren't architects, and all the people who are on the curriculum committee aren't necessarily faculty members, and all of you bring different experiences. How do you see those playing out at the board table and across the committees? And that's for any one of you to answer.
Do you want to start or should I start, Elizabeth?
I am absolutely going to let you start, Arthur.
Okay. Okay, again, I've written something. The membership of the Board of Trustees should have a breadth of experience and careers that will hopefully lead to insights and, with luck, wisdom. Dr. Frank Austin, a life trustee, is an example of wisdom that has come from a life of rich experiences that have been helpful to Amherst. He is an amazing guy. Our trustees come from a wide range of careers: the law, arts, academics, finance, public service, which offer insights for the college. I think it is this wide range of experience, more than the breadth of classes, that offers the most help here. There is a Japanese expression that I really just resonates in my head over years. The wise man has had varied experience over time, not the same experience over many years. And that's the way I think about it.
Thank you, Arthur. Great, good. Go ahead.
I'll chime in. I was lucky enough to work at the Atlantic under Cullen Murphy, the longtime trustee and board co-chair. And when I got elected, I asked him for advice, and he only gives sage advice. So his sage advice was to listen well and to ask questions. And I just, on the listening front, there are just so many experiences and incredible perspectives in that room. It really is just something to behold. And often I feel like the person at the student in the Amherst seminar going, I'm not sure I should be in this room. But I've been thinking about it a lot. It's funny, I'm the youngest class on the board, but 20 years out from Amherst, which doesn't feel very young. And it's, as trustees, we're always, we sort of are coming from Amherst past while really looking forward to its future. And when we get to meet with students at the board, I'm really struck by how different Amherst is from when I was there, but how it's better for those differences. And also struck by the things that haven't changed. Biddy, you talked about this, and I think if we asked those guys on the horses 200 years ago, they would say Amherst has incredible students, amazing faculty, and a commitment to educating people and turning them into critical thinkers. And I think those things haven't changed. So I love that breadth of classes and that breadth of experience lets us see at Amherst what needs to change, but also what should never change.
Wow, that's a great way to wrap it. Was somebody going to say something?
This is Paul. I was going to just agree with Elizabeth. We come from all these different Amhersts over a period of 50 more years, but as a board, we work together so well because the constants are really what matter. There obviously been tremendous changes of some sort, but the constants are so clear. And so we work really well together for that reason.
Well, we're fortunate to have your reunion class. Chris, go ahead.
I was just gonna add, well, we now have our board chair who probably wanted to remain silent in the corner there, Andy, but sort of credit to him and to his predecessor, Colin Murphy, and I'm sure the other board chairs before. I didn't serve under any of them, but the degree to which everybody contributes and is expected to contribute, and nobody more than where others are interested in hearing from that person, so there's nobody who dominates. There are no blowhards who go on and on. Everybody really does speak up and is expected to, particularly on the most complicated issues. So there is true representation from all over. And I think that's unique to any board that I've ever served on. And I really, again, I give a lot of credit to our board chairs for carrying on that culture, and to, Biddy and others around the table for making sure it's collegial like that.
Thank you, Chris. And yes, a nod and a thanks to Andy Nussbaum, our ever present and ever supportive and endless hours logged this year for Amherst. So thank you, Andy. He's class of 85. And Biddy, I think we'll turn it back to you. I'll just say that I wish we were doing our golf cart run across campus, visiting at all the tents and seeing all of you and enjoying the fellowship that really is reunion. We'll do our best to jump into Zoom rooms and Zoom events over the next 2 or 3 nights. I know some things have already started tonight, but I am so grateful for the endless hours I know so many of you put into preparing for this. Just moments before the Zoom, or maybe an hour before, I saw the online version of the 50th reunion book, and I can be pretty sure a lot of people from the class of 71 are going to be up all night reading that. It looks fantastic. But every one of you who helped to make this happen, you're doing panels, who organize your classes, we really, really appreciate it, and just wish we could be together. Biddy?
A big thanks to Betsy and the advancement team for all they do to make reunion possible, and so much else. I hope you all enjoy one another, even at a distance still for now. I hope you enjoy the sessions and feel like you are touching base and getting to know each other even better. Have fun. I don't know how you have a drink together of the sort that I've seen you have in the tents on campus over Zoom, but I'm sure given that you're Amherst alums, you can figure it out. So have a great time. Thank you all for tuning in, for caring about the college, for caring about one another, and be well.
Thank you all. Good night.
Looks like a staff meeting.